Off top, in the lifetime of the queen of a termite colony, they can produce up to 160 million eggs. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show, presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. This is a different Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. I'm joined as usual on Monday by the great Bill Barnwell, but as is the case this point in an NFL season, some people start dropping like flies, so we don't got Charlie Kravitz today. He will be back soon.
Attrition.
It's just me and Billy Barnes. What's up, Bill? How are you?
I got to admit, Domonique, I missed my Uncle Charles.
I appreciate
Charlie.
The Bone Thugs reference. If only Cleveland had something else to be happy about. I guess they kind of do.
Oh no, I don't know if that's true. They got Taysom Hill today. Taysom Hill scored 3 touchdowns on him today.
I feel like things are brighter in Cleveland now than they were like a month ago. Let's say. I mean, for Browns fans, am I wrong?
I mean, it's bad if what made things better was your star quarterback tearing his Achilles, but I don't know. Different shades of the same bad coin there, I feel like, in Cleveland.
Man, I'm just imagining Charlie being upset from wherever he is right now because we've decided to start this show despite the fact that there is several incredibly consequential, important games, probably the best football weekend of the NFL so far this season. We start with Bone Thugs references and discussion of the irrelevant Cleveland Browns franchise. But I will take the this opportunity to pivot us to that most important game. The most consequential game of the weekend probably was the Bills versus the Chiefs. And in that game, the Bills got a very impressive win over the 2-time defending champion and undefeated Chiefs. But somehow I leave this game feeling no different about either team. Like, I feel like the Chiefs did what we've all been warning. And I say we've been warning as if people weren't listening. I get the feeling that most people also accepted that the Chiefs aren't great. And at some point, them messing around with these teams, or not messing around because that suggests that they're in control. At some point, the fact that they are among a group of good football teams, but not great, it was going to come up and bite them. And I think a lot of people picked this as the game because Josh Allen is on the field. And it came down to it. The point that I think often is made about these teams that have these one-score wins is it can be divided, the game can be decided by a play or two at the end. The Chiefs have been making that play, but to me, it was that 4th and 2 play. Josh Allen took it for a touchdown. He made that play, and the Chiefs have been in these games time and time again, and we knew this was going to happen, Bill. So do you feel any different about either of these teams after that game?
No. Domonique, do you remember when there was that submarine implosion last year,
yeah,
a couple years ago?
I do.
There was a Reddit post after the submarine implosion that was like, I really think if I was in a submarine that imploded, I would just survive it. I would just get caught in an air bubble. I would see what was coming. I'd alert people. Like, there's that real belief, oh no, I am always going to pull this out. And to me, that is the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to find that air bubble. They're going to find a way out of every possible situation. But inevitably, the laws of numbers, the realities of football catch up with you, and you run into someone who is also built different and also going to just overcome. And that is to be the difference in this spot, is that we have seen, I think, 6 games this year where the Chiefs were facing a team that had the opportunity to take the lead with a score in the final 4 minutes, and they had the ball. And this was the 7th time that happened. And none of those teams have Lamar Jackson. They had Baker Mayfield playing really well. They had Joe Burrow. They had the Falcons and Kirk Cousins. Like, those teams had great quarterbacks, but Josh Allen is Josh Allen. And that was a play, that 4th down play. The Chiefs did exactly what they wanted. The Bills ran mesh, the same play they ran for a touchdown earlier in the game. They were expecting man coverage. The Chiefs dropped out and played zone. They got the exact look they were hoping for from the Kansas City perspective. They got a man beater and got in zone coverage. But they have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen just ran through the entire team for a scramble for a touchdown. We've seen so many times this year where the Chiefs have come up with that 3rd down play where they stuffed Ty Johnson. Against the Falcons, they did that. Against the Ravens, they came down to a Isaiah Likely toenail, but they got that stop when they needed it. they thought they had to stop here, and the Bills, thankfully, smartly decided, no, we're not going to kick a field goal. We're not going to ask our defense to shot Mahomes down 5. We are going to put the ball in the hands of our best player. And that is exactly what they did. And they were suitably rewarded for it.
That was a conversation as I was watching this with Kevin and Brian. A couple producers was like, all right, the Bills are going to get to a 4th down. And before they even got close to it, they better not kick this 4th down or better not kick this field goal, kick the ball back to the Chiefs, and it sets up Patrick Mahomes to do what he always does. Fortunately, they were thinking just like us. If I was looking to make an argument that I should feel differently about these teams, and part of the reason why I don't feel differently is the Bills beat them every year. I think it's 4 regular seasons in a row that they have beaten them,
in a row.
And they end up losing to them in the playoffs. But the argument for why this is different, at least to me, is Amari Cooper made an incredible catch on the sideline. And they did this without Kincaid and without Coleman. They're 2 of their other weapons. So the argument that you could make is they moved the ball pretty effectively against this really impressive Chiefs defense. They got the plays that they needed. It felt like just about every time against this impressive Chiefs defense, and they were down the weapons that we thought that they needed to get by, because coming into this game, the big conversation about the Chiefs defense, they're dominant, but tight ends seem to have been their problem so far this season. Tight ends have had big games time and time again. The Bills came in here without Dalton Kincaid, their big pass-catching tight end, and still were able to really control the game and schemed up some pretty impressive big shots.
Yeah, and this is an offense that we know Josh Allen's very comfortable going anywhere with this offense. He'll put the ball to 9 different receivers at different points during this game, and that is tougher to defend against in some ways. Like, yes, you'd love to have a Justin Jefferson. You'd love to have a, 27-year-old Stephon Diggs who's going to just beat every man coverage you want to roll up. But this is a Chiefs team that isn't playing as much man as they did last year. They don't have the same cover corners they had last year without L'Jarius Sneed. And so you've seen them play zone more. You've seen them blitz less and try to rush 4 more. And in this game, Romo even mentioned it during the game, like they were very comfortable letting Chris Jones play one-on-one in this game. And that is a dangerous way to live, to be honest with you, but they survived. I mean, they made it through. And that is I think that's the change that's happening, is that you have a defense that does not have the ability to take away receivers the same way. And you don't have a focal point in this Bills offense that you can stick one player on and say, okay, if we take that one guy out, we're fine with everything else. We saw in this game, Khalil Shakir made big plays. Amari Cooper made big plays. Dawson Knox had a couple big plays. And really, Josh Allen, I thought, outside of the maybe inexcusable or inexplicable interception and the one missed deep pass to Quentin Morris, his 3rd string tight end, I thought he was phenomenal throughout this entire game.
Yeah, the interception. So I get why you might say it's inexcusable and inexplicable. Like I saw what he was thinking there, essentially giving my guy a chance at this.
Sounds like you're saying it's explicable.
I'm trying to explic it. I think inexcusable is fair. I don't think it's inexplicable. Like it seemed like the tight end sat down when he thought he was going to keep going. Maybe he shouldn't have taken that chance, and I think he anticipated obviously to be a jump ball, that worst case scenario interception. But those are the mistakes that normally are capitalized on and lead to a loss. So I get why people would argue against that. But Josh Allen's interception is not the issue to me, and Patrick Mahomes' interception was also in the inexcusable, inexplicable territory. But it's not this one interception that's concerning to me. It's that he leads the league in interceptions. And oftentimes, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, if anybody gets a pass, he gets a pass. But the combination of him turning the ball over more than he ever has and more than anyone else in the league, at least from interceptions, with him also not creating big plays, like that was the Patrick Mahomes superpower. It was Aaron Rodgers in his prime-ish, in that he could put up big numbers without turning the ball over. Now he's putting up small numbers. They run a dink and dunk offense, like a game manager style offense. The whole point of running a game manager style offense is that you're not going to turn the ball over. You're going to protect your great defense. You're going to put yourself in a situation there's not a whole bunch of pressure. Like I'm having a hard time reconciling the fact that we all still think Patrick Mahomes is great, and he shows it on 3rd and longs and on many fourth quarters. We all think Andy Reid is incredible, and he shows it in the adjustments that they make from drive to drive, from play to play, and from game to game. But we're still in a situation where they are getting the bad without the good. They're getting the turnovers without the explosive plays. Like, what am I to make of that going forward?
I think the only reason I would not be concerned about it if I were a Chiefs fan is going back a couple of years, right? He had that season, was it the last Tyreek year? Where people were like, oh, people playing too high against the Chiefs, they're throwing interceptions. And a lot of those interceptions were kind of flukish, freaky plays.
Right.
And like midway of the year, he had like 9 or 10 interceptions. And then he's Patrick Mahomes and he settled down and he was fine over the rest of the year and fine deep into the postseason. I think what's concerning to me is these interceptions keep happening in the same way. Like so many of them are under pressure throws where linebackers or defenders in like the intermediate zones are picking it off over the middle of the field. Like it feels like he continues to make the same mistake or push that same envelope a little too far consistently with the interceptions he's throwing. Now, does it scare me? No, but I think you need to have something else to work with in this offense. And that's why I think the return of Isaiah Pacheco is going to be very important to see where this offense goes, because Kareem Hunt has not been an effective running back. And he's getting, I think, he doesn't have a lot of plays this week, but as of last week, from the time he entered the starting lineup to last week, Kareem Hunt had more touches per game than anybody in the NFL. And Kareem Hunt is not playing like 2016 Kareem Hunt. He's not playing like 2023 Christian McCaffrey. That is not a positive thing for your offense to give Kareem Hunt 25 touches a game. But I think Andy Reid's been doing that because he knows, hey, like there's not the receiving, there's not the left tackle, there's not the passing offense here to support throwing the ball 50 times a game. And so I think getting, if they're going to run the ball as much as they are, getting it to Pacheco, an actual good running back, is going to make a pretty significant difference for them, I should say.
Yeah, the left tackle issue wasn't as big of a problem this week as it has been in the.
It was still bad.
Right, it was still bad, but it wasn't the deciding factor in this game. Like, I almost forgot about it. Honestly, we can get back to the left tackle issue, but I want to get to the receiver conversation because there was a couple weeks ago when D-Hop first got there, I think his second game, he went off and we all were impressed and like, yeah, this is going to work. This is going to fit. But we also recognize that he is a zone beater and he beat that zone pretty badly. And now we're in a situation where we're looking for someone to separate, and you can go through all the acquisitions that the Chiefs have made. Nobody, not one player that they've brought in yet, have been able to be that man beater, separator, difference maker, big play receiver or it doesn't even have to be big play as far as yards are concerned, but important moments. If we're going to play tight coverage, if they're going to blitz, who can I trust to get open? And D-Hop never has been like a separation type of guy, but certainly not at this point in a career. And with Xavier Worthy still playing like a rookie, there's no, like you made the point of Pacheco coming back. There's nobody coming back. We're past the trade deadline. If there was a free agent receiver out there that could separate, he would get a contract offer. That's almost more concerning than the fact that the left tackle position is so unstable.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of guys like, could they sign that guy who runs at baseball games? Is he available to be added to the roster? Jason Avant might be a free agent. I'm trying to think of guys who know the Andy Reid offense. It's like the guys who they had who were supposed to be that were Rashee Rice, were Hollywood Brown. Those guys are not coming back, we assume.
MVS
Xavier
is
Worthy
not coming back.
moment.
He's got a couple hundred yards. He got a couple 100-yard games under his belt recently.
Can you imagine MVS' entire career? He starts with Aaron Rodgers, and he's like, okay, listen, Aaron, I'm leaving as a free agent. I got to go somewhere nice. I'm going to go play with Patrick Mahomes. Okay, I'm going to go to the Bills and play with Josh Allen. Now he's balling out with Derek Carr? Like that was the quarterback he needed his whole career to be a superstar, was Derek Carr? Worthy had his moments in the first half. Like they were finding out stuff for him. He got open for a big play and stepped out of bounds. They had some runaways for him that were producing big plays, some screens that worked. I mean, clearly Andy Reid wants Xavier Worthy to be that guy in this offense. Just Xavier Worthy does not have the physicality at this point to be this guy. I think they have to be very careful and very selective with how they create opportunities for him. Like I don't think you can just line him up and expect him to win. You have to have stuff where you can set picks for him, get some positive leverage opportunities for him where he's not getting, manhandled at the line of scrimmage, line him up behind some guys, get him in motion. Like Andy Reid knows all this stuff, but to me, I think that's their only hope is just if Xavier Worthy becomes that guy, because there's no one else in the roster who can pull that off.
But that's everybody. That's the problem is everybody on their offense you have to scheme for at this point, right? Sure. Like I guess Kelsey may be the one that you don't have to scheme for that much, but you kind of...
They still scheme for Kelsey, for sure.
I was going to say, you kind of get comfortable with scheming for him too, so maybe that's the problem is there gets a point in these games where you want to hand it to one guy or focus on one guy and know that he's going to have the answer to your question. Like In this game, it was Josh Allen. And often in recent history for Patrick Mahomes, it's been him with his legs. But that doesn't seem sustainable when the alternative is Josh Allen running with the ball. Patrick Mahomes had a big run in this game, too, at the end that got called back. But that just doesn't feel – while it always happens, it happens because, at least in my view, the Mahomes big runs happen because you're concerned about something else. If you're not concerned about something else, I'm a lot more concerned about Patrick Mahomes doing the penguin run down for a 15-yard first down.
Okay, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here because we made the case, do we know anything different about these teams or feel differently about these teams after this game? Could we have not have made this case about the 2022 Chiefs or most of the 2023 Chiefs and they still won Super Bowls?
This is the problem. I appreciate you are making great television / podcasts because you're saying things that you don't believe in. But we both know that, sometimes aberrations happen. And it's hard to make a living on playing roulette. Sometimes it's going to come up the way that you want, or flipping a coin. I feel like roulette is better because flipping a coin is 50-50. This doesn't feel as good as 50-50. And that at some point is going to, no, not at some point. I think at some point it's going to go right. Most of the time it's going to burn you. And these Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, all these guys that they keep bringing in and thinking they're going to work. I guess Rashee Rice is the one guy that has worked, but he's injured now. And Hollywood Brown, I think most of us believe that would have worked, but he's not there. But before we move on to the next game, Ravens-Steelers, since you are being an incredible TV maker, I'm going to try to. Get ready for this question. You ready? Are you seated? Okay. Sit down. All right. Was this loss good for the Chiefs?
Oh, I hate this question. This question sucks. I'm not Domonique. I'm not.
No. Here we go. I will ask myself the question since you believe it sucks. The question.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm not an NFL player. Have you ever sat in the locker room before and after a loss and been like, you know what? This was actually good for us. I'm actually happy we lost. Has anyone ever said that in a locker room you were in before? Ever?
No one's ever said I'm happy we lost. And that is exactly why I think this loss might be good for the Chiefs. I get it. As it's going through my mind, I'm like, this is stupid. Being happy is not good for most people. So the most adjustments, or being happy all the time, is not good for anyone. It's a lot easier to make adjustments and adjust problems when you're coming off of a loss. That's one way to look at this. And then there's a other way that I think you could argue is good for this particular team. A team that for the past 6 years has been making playoff runs and taxing themselves emotionally and is now in a situation. I think that this loss does take some pressure off of this team. And it's not even the pressure as much as it's the emotional gas tank. And this is all kind of ephemeral type of hocus pocus stuff, so it can easily have holes punched in it. But you said you're not a player. I can speak to the fact that when you are in a playoff hunt and every game matters, it is quite exhausting week after week to have that emotional burden of damn, another must win. Damn, another must win. We got to figure out a way to win again. That's tiresome. And I do think whether the Chiefs are willing to admit it or not, the further the undefeated season goes along, the more it feels like an emotional tax. And so I do think there's something to be said for them. This is off them now. All right, cool. We'll lose another game at some point. Whatever. Who cares? We'll keep playing, and we're going to focus on what really is important to us this season, the three-peat. And I don't think it's a conscious decision. And that's why I think it's possible that it could be good for them.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to be good for the Chiefs is they're just, driving along. Gas tank's pretty low. They're a little hungry. They need to go to the bathroom. And suddenly they see on the horizon, what's coming up next week? The Carolina Panthers, the ultimate rest stop for the NFL. They're going to fill up. This week is going to be lost to memory in the course of 7 days. I think that would have been a nice little emotional respite for the Chiefs, whether they had won this game or lost.
All right, next up, a game that a loss was definitely not good.
Oh, we need an emotional respite after that game.
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens went to Pittsburgh, and they lost again. Lamar, his bugaboo, I guess it's stronger than a bugaboo. Bugaboos are just annoying. His Achilles heel, his kryptonite is Mike Tomlin and that Steelers defense. They lost this game. Lamar in a post-game press conference said we have a problem with beating ourselves, and he pointed to last year's playoff game and the other losses that
literally
they've had.
every other major loss they've ever had in the last 6 years. Like did he spend 20 minutes answering this question and pointing to every single game they lose? Because that's the only thing that ever beats them is them outplaying themselves or beating themselves.
That's it's a great point by you, and I think that people as talented as Lamar Jackson often do think that the only way they can lose is if they beat themselves. But I watched this game, and I know there were a lot of penalties and there were turnovers, but this did not feel like a situation. There are some games, the game they lost to them last year where they dropped a bunch of passes. Yeah, we beat ourselves. I could see how that happened. This didn't feel like that. Like there were strips that caused fumbles. These weren't just like guys dropping fumbles. The interception was an incredible play. I would even give it a lucky play, but it wasn't you guys beating yourselves. And there was a big drop by Zay Flowers, but the team ended up overcoming that. That wasn't the...
I wouldn't even call that a drop because you have to, if you have a drop, you have to react to a football catching you. Like Zay Flowers looked like he just like his mind went blank for a second and he just got woken, like he fell asleep and got woken up by a pass to the helmet.
And if that would have been the play and that was on the potential the game tying drive, if that would have been the play that ended it, I'd be like, all right, I see where you're coming from, Lamar. But no, they overcame that and went down to score a touchdown and then missed the 2-point conversion and lost this game. This was not the problem. The problem wasn't you beating yourselves. You got beaten. And those penalties, a few of them were holding. Holding is not like an illegal procedure. You hold because you got your beat. And so, right? Like these are not, this doesn't feel like it falls into the category of them beating themselves.
No, because I mean, it's not like this was a game where the Steelers did stuff they don't normally do, right? Like if you would describe how this game was played, this was like a quintessential Pittsburgh Steelers victory. Like this is the way they win every single week. They were great on defense. They pressured Lamar a ton, and when they pressured him, Lamar was like 4-12 for 33 yards. The Steelers have a sub-2 QBR when they get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, best of any team in football by a significant margin. So basically, when they get pressure on you, game's over. I think Lamar played okay in this game. It wasn't like he was great, but he wasn't terrible. It wasn't like he's had terrible games before. This was not that kind of game where he was just missing open receivers, like you said, where guys were dropping passes. That was not the case here. It was the Steelers exerting their will on the Baltimore Ravens. And then other thing the Steelers do is they are consistently better than the other team on special teams. And this was a game where Chris Boswell went 6 for 6. And we may have to have a talk about Justin Tucker. It's getting... It really is embarrassing. Embarrassing is the wrong word. I feel bad. Like I feel embarrassed for someone who's been so consistently good for so long. It like, I don't know what it's like to be that good at anything at any point in my entire life, but it just hurts. I don't know what to do. I'm scared to watch.
I was going to put off the conversation about him towards the end of this because I think it does matter in the playoffs, particularly because those games are often close games and kicking often decides those games. For Justin Tucker, it feels like he showed some signs last year, but it's been precipitous. And that's the most shocking part. It's like I don't track a bunch of kickers, but I feel like the way that kickers kind of fall off is they lose distance. And like this makes sense to me. Maybe it's not true, but it makes sense to me that, all right, Justin Tucker's not kicking 60-yarders anymore. Okay, maybe the high end of 50 is not good anymore. But now Justin Tucker just feels like he went from the most automatic, consistent, probably the best kicker of all time. If not, if you don't want to get into like who made the most like game-winning field goals in big moments, that is irrelevant. As far as the ability to kick field goals, I mean, that's irrelevant in this conversation to me. The ability to kick field goals, there was no one you trusted more in the history of the game than Justin Tucker. And now he feels like a rookie. Or like
liability.
You're random. It's like randomizing his kicking, which is a real bad place to be in, particularly for a team like the Ravens, where John Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator and has always been like an edge that the Ravens use to overcome teams, and they've lost it.
Yeah, I mean, this to me felt like the Steelers were the 1994 Knicks. Like, doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter what you do when you play everybody else in the league. When you come play the Steelers, you are playing the Steelers game of football. And normally, that's not the worst thing for the Ravens. Normally, the Ravens have a great defense. Normally, the Ravens have very good special teams. That is not a way that normally they lose football games. But this is not that Ravens team. This team is Lamar, and kind of everyone else is along for the ride. The defense is not great. We know that. The special teams is not great. We've seen that in terms of the kicking game. So if you're going to play that kind of game against this team, I'm not surprised Steelers won. That's where they dominate teams each and every week.
You could argue that this was a good game relative to expectations for the Ravens defense. Like holding them to only field goals, creating red zone turnovers. This is a game that you expect the Ravens to win. And I think the most shocking thing for me in this game is I went from early in the week saying it's going to be a close game. It could go either way because it's the Steelers, it's the Ravens. To rewatching Steelers-Ravens game and recognizing that the Steelers formula in the past was to blitz Lamar, and his numbers against the blitz in this game were incredible. He was great against the blitz, as he's been all season. I was like, fine. Lamar's got you right where he wants you because he's corrected the one weakness that he had. And then they didn't blitz, and he was awful against just drop back zones. And it was kind of the traditional conversation about forcing quarterbacks to take what you give them. And Lamar was comfortable taking what you gave him. But the problem with that is you got to be perfect. You can't make a mistake. You have to be perfect for 12 plays in a row. And that's hard for any offense. And normally Lamar or someone on that offense creates a big play. One of the big plays should have been like a 40-yard gain that turned into an interception because of randomness or just awesome defense. I don't know what to call it, but it happened. And so it's a bad place to be in for the Ravens, I think, losing this game to this particular team, particularly in this way where Lamar just looked uncomfortable. And he wasn't bad, like you mentioned, but he wasn't the normal, steamroller that this offense has been for most games this season.
But the same thing I think about with the Chiefs, I think, because we're at the Ravens, right? The Chiefs' first drive of the game, I think was it the first play of the game? The second play of the game? Mahomes throws an interception. Ravens here, first series of the game, first possession of the game for sure, Derrick Henry fumbles the football. Steelers get it. They kick a field goal. Games are a lot harder if you're spotting the opposing team points on the very first drive. That is that reduces a lot of your advantage if you're the better football team. And I do think the Chiefs are better than the Bills. I do think the Ravens in a vacuum are better than the Steelers, but those two teams are so good that if you spot them 3, spot them 7 early on, your chances of winning go down dramatically. And I don't want to overcorrect my feelings about these teams based on what happened in the first 2 minutes of these games, because they're not going to turn the ball over the first 2 minutes of the game. So the next time these two teams play.
Yeah, no. I get your point. I was just thinking about another aspect. And since Charlie's not here, I feel the responsibility of playing the opposite side of our very smart and reasonable conversation. And we're right about the Ravens not beating themselves. But an argument for them beating themselves is Derrick Henry hasn't fumbled in 3 years, and he fumbled on his first carry of the game. Justin Tucker, it's been, 4 years since he's missed 2 field goals in the game. He did it in this game. These are things that you could argue rarely happen, and it is an example of them beating themselves. Can I move you off of it just a little bit? I don't know if I want you to because I want to think that I'm right, but that feels like the argument I could make for they are beating themselves, and then the penalties, of course.
Maybe what I would say is that there are times where they beat themselves. Samara's had interceptions this season.
Right.
Derrick Henry hasn't lost a fumble, but I think he's fumbled 2 other times this year. Justin Tucker's missed field goals this year. But usually they are so good and so dominant, and they create those big plays that they can overcome that. It's not like good teams aren't perfect. The Chiefs aren't perfect. They make mistakes every single week. But when you have the talent that these teams have, when you have the quarterbacks these teams have, your margin for error is higher. And I think facing a team like the Steelers, because they are just buzzsaws when it comes to how they want to play and what they can do, and they're not going to make a ton of mistakes themselves on offense. They won horrific interception in this game by Russell Wilson. But besides that, they typically are not turning the ball over very often. They're typically not making mistakes on special teams. They're really good on defense. Like your margin for error is reduced. And so I think that is the case here, is that the Ravens were not able to make the big plays that overcome the mistakes that they made in this game.
These games are always pretty funny because if the Ravens do convert that 2-point conversion and go on to win, and we don't talk about these issues as being as serious as they were. But I do think it's worth discussing if there's any criticism for the 2-point play. I think like Derrick Henry not being on the field is a fair place to start. Were you bothered by that? I think John Harbaugh gets the benefit of the doubt on most things because he traditionally aligns himself with both the nerds and the hand in the dirt guys. Like he makes nerd decisions with hand in the dirt bravado, which works out really well for him.
Campbell.
But if you need to gain 3 yards, having Derrick Henry in the game as a decoy or handing him the ball seems like a fair place to look to criticize John Harbaugh. How do you feel?
Okay. So you remember they actually lined up and they were going to run, I think, quarterback power.
And Mike Tomlin got a timeout in. I'm sorry.
Can you? I was honestly, he's been looking in the camera and like smiling. I thought they were going to cut him on the sideline, calling that timeout, and then he was just going to look at the camera and smile because that was incredible, perfect timing. Yeah. I don't think if you're the Steelers, put it this way, leave my feelings out of it. If you're the Steelers, all things being equal, if Derrick Henry's in the backfield or if Justice Hill is in the backfield, you got to feel better about your chances if Justin Hill's back there, no?
Yeah. I mean, the argument I would make, so I think you're right. Like, no matter what, I want Derrick Henry in the game because he draws.
Even if you're not going to use him, just having the threat of Derrick Henry makes Lamar Jackson better.
As a decoy. If you're going to do the zone read off of it, there's going to require a couple of people to stop Derrick Henry, whether you give him the ball or you pretend to give him the ball. My rationale for it is a personnel decision. It's like they obviously wanted to run the ball, and they wanted Lamar to run the ball. The first play that they ran was like ISO power, essentially quarterback power with Lamar Jackson that got the timeout called. Then they turned it to like a quarterback sweep, and it was clear that they wanted Lamar to run it in. The only argument I can make for why they do that is because they want to dictate personnel, and a 2-point play is normally a passing play. And they send in their third down looking offense to try to dictate to the Steelers that they need to be in nickel or dime or some sort of passing formation, which in their minds makes it easier for Lamar to then run the ball in. It might be a little bit too much 3D chess. And the reason why Mike Tomlin's timeout was so great is teams come into a game with like, this is our 2-point play. We got to have it. This is our play. We got other ones, but this is our one. And he made them show their one, and then you can't run it again. And then they had to go to whatever their second play was. And that feels like part of the problem there is Mike Tomlin got that edge.
I'm always skeptical of this. Maybe you can convince me otherwise. It's not like running power is like this incredible trick play that you can't dial up again. Like teams run power a bunch. They can run duo. You can run whatever concept you want to run at the goal line for a run play. It's not like that's some incredible concept you can't dial up again or that you can't run a second time. Yeah. Like to me, it's not like if you're running like a pop pass with Derrick Henry. Okay, you can't dial that up 2 times in a row. But like if you're gonna run outside zone, like you could do that 2 times in a row. I don't think that's that crazy.
No, it does get a lot harder though. So like we have a period in practice called 9-on-7, which is just a run period. And the defense knows it's a running play. And it's 9 guys on offense and 7 guys on defense. And it's the corners are out, and it's just like we're gonna run it right here. When you know it's a defensive drill, and it's very difficult for the offense to have success in that situation, right? Or it's 9 on defense, 7 on offense, yeah. And so it's really hard to run when there are no receivers on the field because everyone is just a hair trigger, just a little bit quicker and more aggressive. So I do think that I would not run power, or I would run it from a different formation. I wouldn't run it like that. Right. But the real smart thing to do right there, the real think ahead thing to do, if you could possibly do it, is run the same thing but make a pass option off of it.
Yeah, play action,
right?
run power pass.
Right. It's show the same look and then do the power pass, because as soon as you line up in the same formation or a similar formation, they are then kind of preconditioned to do it. But that's a lot to ask. I disagree with them running it right, or running it with the same play, same formation. I don't think that works, especially against that Steelers defense.
Well, since you're going to correct me, didn't you say something was 3D chess earlier?
Did I?
Isn't all chess 3D?
Yeah, it's 4D. Did I say 3D chess? And you let me slide?
Yeah, you said 3D chess.
You're so nice.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to cut you off to make fun of you. I figured since you were going to tell me I was wrong, I was going to bring it up later.
Well, I mean,
you're right though.
When's the last time you actually played chess with somebody in person? Most of the time you play chess on a screen, which is 2D chess. So maybe 3D chess was the right way to do it.
They got me. That was actually 4D chess on your part. You set me up with the 3D chess line, just hit me with the 2D chess part right later. You're right though, and I mean, I guess what I'm saying is like you don't have to call a totally different concept. Like you can call power. Okay, you can still run outside zone. You can still run bash. You can still run any other quarterback run game concepts you have in your offense. And I think all of those are going to be better with Derrick Henry on the field. So if you want to go out, spread them out, go with 3 receivers. Okay, but you're still going to have a halfback on the field, and nothing wrong with having that halfback be Derrick Henry as opposed to Justice Hill.
Yeah, I certainly would like that halfback to be Derrick Henry as opposed to Justice
Hill. We just saw the Chiefs finally give in after 3 months of us saying they can't keep doing this, and they stopped doing it. Are you ever going to get to that point with the Steelers? Is there ever going to be a point where they can't do it, even though they get basically nothing from their passing game most weeks?
I'm not ready to come off of that.
No.
I think the optimistic case for the Chiefs is that this feels like the year of defense in the NFL, and we've kind of gotten to a place in talking about professional football where the defense has to be good, but the defense cannot carry you to a Super Bowl in the ways that we thought it could in the past. This might be the best argument for them is this is the year where defense is able to overpower, and then we'll get a bunch of NFL rule changes because they hate defense, and they'll make it all easy for them again, and that's just the way it works. Because
you just got RPOs nerfed. This has been the year.
No.
Ravens had a couple of plays knocked down because RPOs got nerfed.
RPOs didn't get nerfed. Offense had to start following the rules. No, you can't throw the ball with an offensive tackle 8 yards down the field. No, you cannot. It's a simple rule. That's our only run pass read that you can rely on is what the offensive line does. And then for an entire season, they completely disregarded it. It was like, oh, no, that's illegal. 5 yards down the field, and we're throwing a deep pass. Cool, go for it. We didn't nerf RPOs. It's kind of like the illegal hands downfield rule. They didn't nerf the illegal hands downfield. You just started calling it. So, yes, we're calling RPOs. I have no compassion for offensive players who wish that they could cheat again.
Left guards want to go on journeys. You don't want to let them go on it. That's disrespectful to the offensive linemen. Let them roam if they want to. Let them find their home.
If you're going to go on a journey in a vehicle, you're going to need insurance, which is why we are now getting ready for the check-in presented by Allstate. The check-in presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. So I've been saying for a long time now that I believe, 4 weeks at least, that I believe the Lions are far and away the best team in football. Bill, tell me that I am right. And I know coming up off a Jaguars win is not a time to say that the Lions are particularly impressive. However, they have beaten the hell out of a bunch of teams. They've done the find the way to win the bad game last week when their quarterback threw 5 interceptions. Their issues with their defense have seemed to have subsided. Their defense, despite the fact that they lost Hutch, their best pass rusher, they brought in Zadarius Smith to supplement that pass rush. And generally, the defense is good enough, and this offense is powered by their O-line, and it's quite impressive and pretty dominant. So they're the best team in football by far, and we should ignore the fact that they happen to wear one of the most cursed franchise uniforms in the history of professional football and accept that it's a new version of the Lions, and they're the only team in football that week in, week out shows up and kicks their opponents.
So this is after, a year and a half of you calling them an unserious team? Now that you've been on their bandwagon for 4 weeks?
Nope. So, to be fair, I called them an unserious outfit last season. The playoffs, they lost the unserious outfit. But I also had some limitations on them. And this season, limitations removed. These are
So
my favorite to win the Super Bowl.
So once they lost their best defensive player, you were like, okay, my concerns are gone. No, there's nothing wrong. The Lions are a great team, but I am not drawing any dramatic conclusions about the Detroit Lions after 2 victories against the AFC South. I mean, you even brought up that they were playing a Jaguars team without Trevor Lawrence, the one guy we think is any good on that team, whose head coach, Doug Peterson, was all but fired in the media before the game, and who, if the Jaguars like Doug Peterson and don't want him to be fired, they did not show it on Sunday, because this was maybe the worst performance I can think of, with your head coach's job possibly on the line heading into the bye. And then last week, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions, but it was against the Houston Texans, who can't get out of their own way, who can't take advantage of those issues, who are not a good team in my eyes. They're better than the Jags, but they are not a team that I think are among the 6 best teams in the AFC right now. So, no, I think if you get them against a bad football team, they are absolutely going to dominate that team. But if they are against a good team and Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, which we know he has the ability to do in his back pocket now, no, I don't think they're going to be able to overcome that. So yeah. I don't think the Lions are the best team in the NFC, but I still think there are better teams in the AFC than the Detroit Lions.
There's no team that is you can consistently rely on coming back from a quarterback throwing 5 interceptions. Maybe you would argue that this team has a quarterback who is more prone to do it than other good teams.
Yes.
But I'm not saying that the season is over. It's football. They have a chance. What I'm saying is what they've demonstrated so far this season is by far and away the most impressive run of anybody in the league, NFC or AFC. And if this were a team that has a track record that we respected, if this was the 49ers, like we switched the jerseys between the 49ers and the Lions, we would be calling the season now. And I think the Lions have started to become, or might have just become, the Super Bowl favorite. But I think that's a lot more about the lack of, I guess, challengers in the NFC as opposed to the AFC than it is about people really respecting this team. Like Jared Goff, I get him. I get it. He's not a top of the league elite quarterback, but the ability to go for 412 and 4 touchdowns today, like that's something. And their running attack, also I have a bit of a bone to pick with them. Like Sonic and Knuckles, don't try to mix it up. You guys are thunder and lightning, as every big small back combo has been in the history of the NFL. It's always call them thunder and lightning since the start of time. You don't get to start some new age Sonic and Knuckles foolishness. You're thunder and lightning, just like everybody else was.
Old man Domonique wants Jim Brown. Was Jim Brown the first Thunder and Lightning? I feel like you're making people stick with stuff from if it had been trying to think of.
I mean, Jacob and Barber, Tiki Barber and Brandon Jacobs.
Rondane?
They were Thunder and Lightning.
You're going back to Brandon. Rondane was Thunder, with Tiki Barber being lightning back in the day.
Then Brandon Jacobs showed up. He was like 6'5". Did I tell you
he was like Rondane, but good.
Did I tell you about the time I got in a fight with Brandon Jacobs?
That's a really bad decision on your part.
It wasn't a decision, man. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It wasn't a decision.
Not me. Sometimes what I have to do is run away. That is something I've learned to do very well.
It was a shrine game bowl practice. Everybody's trying to show off, but try to get drafted. But he was going too far. And a scuffle broke out. Unfortunately, it was broken up before he could rip off any of my limbs.
How did that went well for you? Did you have big people who were supporting you?
It was fantastic. I mean, it appeared as if I really wanted to fight him. And then it stopped before it could get out of hand. So, yeah, it was perfect.
That's pretty much the ideal scenario for you. I mean, the Lions, leaving their running back nicknames aside, I think they're totally fine.
Totally fine.
You know what? Would you go with Mario and Luigi?
No.
The big guy can be Mario. The thin guy can be Luigi.
No. There's nothing. Yeah, Mario, Luigi. There's nothing explosive or strong. It's just one's tall and one's short. It's not.
What are you talking about? You have not played Super Mario Brothers 2 in a long time. I can tell.
Well, Super Mario 2, 3, by far the best one.
3,
you could fly. It had all the 3 was the best one.
Yeah, they had the power ups today. The Detroit Lions. They were just running into. They had all these power ups in their arsenal they could use on the Jaguars, who were little Mario the entire game because they were just getting beat up and run over the entire time. this could be the first team in league history to have 2 1,000-yard rushers and a 1,000-yard receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They could even have 2 1,000-yard receivers if Jameson Williams picks up and stays on the field the rest of the year. Like, yes, that is incredible. And having Jared Goff, having the best offensive line in football, I trust that offense. This is just the rational part of me. This is just the, like, I'm paying attention part of me. I don't think a team without whose pass rush we didn't like very much before Hutchinson got hurt, I don't think they can keep that up for an entire season and survive deep into the playoffs. I just don't. That is not a formula I love deep into the postseason. And I think for whatever issues we have with the Chiefs, for whatever issues we have with the Bills, for whatever issue we have with even the Ravens, like those teams have pass rushes that I count on showing up in January. I just cannot count on the Lions pass rush right now.
I love that you have pivoted to calling the Lions an unserious outfit because they do not have a pass rush, which I respect.
I'm just picking up that Domonique take from 6 weeks ago, just recycling it, just washed it off, got it from the thrift shop, didn't put it straight on, didn't want to be dirty, ran it in the laundry, put it back on, was like, okay, we are good. I'm going to wear this the rest of the day.
I did throw that take out, and you looked at it, it was like, ooh, it's a perfectly good take. Nothing about this take is broken. All the supporting factors that made this a good take 6 weeks ago still exist. Why did this fool throw away the take
now? It's an even better take now. The meat tastes even better. It just aged it a little more.
All right. We got one topic left that I wanted to hit. So, 3 young quarterbacks this week had great weeks. We got Caleb against the Packers. Anthony Richardson destroyed the Jets. And Bo Nix went in on the Falcons. I want to start with Caleb Williams. I think of the 3 quarterbacks that I was most impressed with, Caleb Williams had a special week because he did all the things that we thought he couldn't do through the course of this season. He did them all in this game, and it made Shane Waldron, he's going to have a real hard time, the previous offensive coordinator, have a real hard time getting a job coming up here soon.
That's not true. He's a former NFL offensive coordinator. They're guaranteed jobs for all of eternity. There's just, what you did does not matter in the future. I would love it if that were the case, Dominique. Unfortunately, it's not the case. But I would say that I think what was really cool about this from Thomas Brown and from Caleb Williams is there was such an intentional game plan, right? Like what's been so frustrating with the Bears is it feels like they have no identity on offense. They have nothing they can sort of hang their hat on and say, okay, like it's 3rd and 4. This is what we're going to do. This is what our offensive component is. This is what our goals are on offense besides scoring. Like this is what our game plan is. And the game plan here was very simple and very effective. It was, we're getting the ball out as quickly as possible. It's going to be one read, and then if it's not there, go Caleb, go. I think the time to throw here was under 2.2 seconds for most of the game, which would have been one of the fastest marks for any quarterback in football in a single game this year. And that is a very rational thing. When your offensive line sucks, when you're cutting players during the week, when you don't trust your guys, and Caleb's been holding onto the ball for too long and making mistakes and taking sacks, that is absolutely a logical thing to do, is get the ball out of his hands quick, build his confidence up, get some completions. You're probably not going to have as many big plays for sure, but we saw by the end of this game, I mean, Caleb on that 4th and 3 or the 4th down to Romadunze to extend the game, that back shoulder, perfect throw on time. That was something he was not doing last week or in the prior couple weeks of football.
The one thing that I wanted to say about Caleb is, aside from what you said, that he got rid of the ball quickly and they had a nice running attack to support him, is all that stuff worked, and that allowed for when he got in the situation. They didn't hit the field goal, but he led a game-winning drive. And that drive started with back-to-back fumbles. It's 3rd and 19, or excuse me, back-to-back sacks. It's 3rd and 19. There is not an offensive play for that. And Caleb went ahead and did the magic Caleb thing and scrambled around and made a big play to make the 4th down manageable, then converted the 4th down. So it was great to see in one game all the things that had gone away from his offense, the magic and the consistency and basic stuff, even in a loss, that he was able to put all that together and have a good game. That field goal would have felt a little bit better, I think, or a lot better if the field goal went in, but it's still nice to be encouraged. I feel like the Wednesday morning when they come into practice again, this is going to be one of those good losses that you said at the beginning of the show never exists. So take that.
Well, Dominique, you said magic, and I think this applies to all magic, let alone football magic. a little bit of magic is great. Seeing a magic trick when you're walking down the street, that's cool. Seeing a thing on Instagram, that's great. Going to see 60 minutes of magic, that's a little much. You get kind of sick of it. Caleb Williams, you want to get a little bit of Caleb magic. You don't want to build the whole ship out of Caleb magic.
Fair point. I want to start with Anthony Richardson, Bill Barnwell. The most impressive thing of Anthony Richardson to me in this particular game, compared to the other two young quarterbacks that we talked about, Caleb and Bo Nix, Anthony did it without a rushing attack, which I often say, and I don't need to say, we all recognize that it makes life a lot easier. But it seemed like the couple of weeks where he got benched, we all thought the point of benching him was in order to allow him to get his mind right. Is it possible that it was also some time for their coaching staff to get their minds right? Because a lot of the intermediate attempts and short attempts and design runs and RPOs that have not been prevalent enough in that offense seem to show up, which opened up opportunities for the deep passes and the special Anthony Richardson plays.
I mean, yeah, the running game was not good, even with him back. They averaged 2.6 yards per carry. I think the difference here, I want to go back and watch it a little closer, but it seemed like there was more of an emphasis on sort of having defined stuff for him in terms of his footwork. Like, I think a lot of the throws he was missing earlier in the season were throws where he was scrambling, throws where he was off platform, out of structure. And that is the easiest time when you're going to mess up your footwork, when you're not going to get everything you want on the football. Like, the fact that he's capable of throwing the ball 70 yards out of structure is incredible. And there's probably like a dozen people on the planet who can do that at any given time. And the Colts have one of them, and you want to have that in your back pocket. But I think there was too much of that, sort of like the Caleb Williams thing we were just talking about before we moved on to the podcast side of things. Like this, having the ability to do that thing, that magic is great, but unless you're Mahomes, unless you're Allen, unless you're the current version of Lamar, not even the older version of Lamar, like if you're relying on that, you're going to miss throws. And Anthony Richardson was missing too many throws in those situations. And I think having him be more of a pocket passer, having him be more of a player, having him in more situations where he can get his footwork down, where it was defined, where he could, repeat his mechanics, those are all positives. And I think you want to introduce more of the stuff that makes Anthony Richardson special. But if you can have him be a quarterback who is consistent in terms of his footwork, in terms of his mechanic, in terms of knowing what he's going to get on the football, that's going to make him a much better quarterback. And I think you saw that throughout this game because the Jets were not able to get consistent pressure on him, and because the coaching staff was designing a little more of that stuff and building a little more of that into the offense for Anthony Richardson.
So I think the offense seemed a little bit more conceptually connected, and I think a lot of the points that you made there are incredibly accurate, but you opened a door that I'm going to walk through. You brought up the Jets defense, and
I'm shocked that the Get Up host would want to talk about the Jets, would walk through that Jets door and just have a Jets conversation.
I'm just going to step one toe in. We're not going to spend much time in there. Okay. It's really not about the Jets. It's about a take that I had when Robert Saleh was fired that a lot of people thought was dumb, and it's going to sound dumb when I say it now. They should have made Nathaniel Hackett the head coach. Because that solves the problem of him coordinating the offense, and it does not create the problem that we have now, which is they moved Ulbrich up to the head coach, and the defense has been the worst in the league since Robert Saleh was removed. So the problem with this team has gotten worse, in part because they disrupted the one unit that was good. And if we all accept that Nathaniel Hackett no longer needed to be the offensive coordinator, and Ulbrich obviously needed to continue to be the defensive coordinator, the answer is hire that bum out of his responsibilities. But they did not, and I get how hard that would have been. Aaron Rodgers would have been so thrilled. His best friend would have been the head coach of the team, and he also could have left the damn offense alone. Obviously, it's an absurd take, but what about the New York Jets this season is not absurd? I just stepped in. We don't have to continue. I just stepped through the door. We can back out of the door.
Can I say something as we're closing the door?
Sure.
Jeff Saturday, Jets head coach, demote Jeff Ulbrich back to defensive coordinator.
Now you get up and with the best.
Put him back down.
I love it.
Put him back down, demote him. Say, listen, we gave you a shot. You couldn't do it. Aaron Rodgers, head coach, final few games of the year. Mix it up. Just the only person Aaron Rodgers loves more than Nathaniel Hackett is Aaron Rodgers. So why not have him as the head coach?
Well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers might have a new job by the end of this Yeah. The joke that I'm sure has been made on Twitter a number of times. I won't make it myself. But
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're on Blue Sky now, baby.
Oh,
Twitter
yes,
doesn't
fair.
matter to us anymore.
I've come to Blue Sky. I like it over there. I like it. It's kind of nice. It's the water's warm. Not too hot yet. It's gonna get there though.
We gentrified Twitter. That's what we did.
All right, Bo Nix. What did you take away from the Bo Nix performance? And I guess it's not just this single performance. This performance statistically was insane, but it is been pretty impressive, the journey that he's been on. And Sean Payton deserves some credit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who is succeeding without anything we would call great receivers. The offensive line has been good, but what's clear is that if you do not get pressure on Bo Nix, if he is in a favorable situation, Bo Nix can carve you up. And Bo Nix had no problem defeating a Falcons team that they make the Lions pass rush look like the 85 Bears, this Falcons pass rush. It is hopeless. Bo Nix got sacked one time in this game, and it was when his right tackle stepped on him. That was the only time he got taken down in this football game. And if you give Bo Nix time, if he has time in the pocket, he is going to find open receivers. It is when you get pressure on him that he struggles. In that Ravens game, when they went down in the second half, he did nothing because the Ravens were able to get steady pressure. They couldn't run the ball, and so it was 3rd and long the entire game. And, they got to the red zone, throwing against prevent defenses, and then they were terrible inside the red zone in that game. But when you give Bo Nix time to throw, when he has the ability to look for his receivers, he's an accurate passer. And we saw he had some incredible zip on his throws in this game. His footwork's gotten better. I don't think he is as close to being a finished product as some people are making it out to be, but I do think he is taking major steps in the right direction. And I don't know if he's on Jaden Daniels' level as Offensive Rookie of the Year candidates, but I do believe he is playing football where the Broncos can win with him at quarterback, no question.
It looks like as we're recording this, a take that I claimed last week was Chargers, underappreciated, gonna be one of the more respected teams as the season goes on, and their defense is for real and legit. They're up 21-6 right now, feeling good about that take. I didn't want you to respond to that. I just wanted to take a second to beat my chest before something else happens and they end up losing. The only other game of significance that we didn't discuss was 49ers Seahawks. Is there anything on 49ers Seahawks that you want to get off your chest?
Geno! I love watching Geno win games for the Seattle Seahawks. It's so much fun to see Geno win games. Are we like at all concerned about the Niners? They're 5-5. They could not stop the Seahawks after Nick Bosa left this game with a hip injury, or I guess an oblique injury is what they said after the game. Christian McCaffrey does not look like whatever he got in Germany has fixed his Achilles since he's come back. He does not look like the same guy. This offense, like for an offense where for the last couple of years we've been like, oh my God, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. Like the entirety of this offense right now feels like it's Brock Purdy scrambles and Juwan Jennings on 3rd down. And that is not what I expected coming into the season.
Yeah, I think before the season started, one of the questions was, did the 49ers window already close? And I think most of us, because of the respect that we have for this team, we're like, no, this is at the tail end of the window closing. It's still barely open. But with the injuries this year, it feels like they're in a situation where it's hard for me to imagine. And it's not just the injuries on offense. It's the defense not being as dominant as it's been for a lot of this recent 49ers run.
I mean, they got no Nick Bosa right now, who's hurt. They haven't had Drake Greenlaw all year. Talanoa Hufanga has been out for most of the season, in and out of the lineup. So I mean, those are 3 key players. Tre'Davious Ward, their top cornerback, has been out the past couple of weeks because of an off-field situation preventing him from playing. So he'll be back, but like they've been down 4 key players on defense, and this is a team that traded away a bunch of draft picks for Trey Lance, traded away a bunch of draft picks for Christian McCaffrey. And when you trade those draft picks, if you get a great quarterback, it's one thing. If you get a star running back, it's one thing, but those come back to bite you. Those are very valuable trades in terms of giving up talent. And those are missing spots in those rosters that are going to guys like Isaac Yiadom, Devondre Campbell, veteran free agents who are okay, reasonable players, but not cheap, valuable additions to your roster who are, in the same building for multiple years.
All right. Well, if you are missing talent, the people that remain must step up, which is what we did today. Bill Barnwell, thank you so much. This has been an incredible show. I really do sincerely appreciate you because I needed your support. What, you don't want to have a moment of...
Could not have said that in a more dismissive. Bill Barnwell, good work. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Who stepped up, blah, blah, blah.
On to Cincinnati, baby.
Say it. Domonique,
My bad,
what
my
do we
bad.
do on this show?
We say it with our chest. Apologies.
That's right.
Bill Barnwell, you are the man. Thank you for taking up the extra workload despite the fact that we were down a man. We got another win. The win streak continues, and these are not fluky single score wins like the Chiefs have been doing from time to time. We blow everybody out. We beat like the Lions beat. We beat like we saw Mike Tyson's the other night in that fight. That's the type of we are beating. Yeah, that was pretty weird when Mike's butt popped up on the... You didn't watch the fight? They were like interviewed.
I saw that part.
Okay. You saw that on Blue Sky, no doubt.
I was gonna say, Brandon Jacobs, you want to get to that man? You come through me.
Oh no, Brandon. I'm sorry. We don't want any problems with Brandon Jacobs. He's like 6'5", 230, and all muscle. No, he's a good dude though. We made up. All right, Bill. Thanks again.
That.
This has been great. This has been the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. Throw your hands up. Thanks to all the great producers. Once again, Charlie Kravitz, get well. I was going to say we need you, but we could use you.
Wow.
Thanks to all the great producers.
Let's leave it at that.
I love you, Parville, and we out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.